The Gauteng Education Department has told all schools in the province to immediately suspend the sale of food on and around their premises until further notice. The decision was prompted by rising incidents of alleged food poisoning involving pupils in the province. Just this week, 110 pupils from Tamaho Primary School in Bulelani were rushed to hospital after falling ill from suspected contaminated food. Schools and SGBs have been instructed to closely monitor vendors, tuck shops and other outlets that sell food.
Schools must ensure that only food of nutritional value is sold within and near our school premises. No expired or repackaged food items are sold to learners. Any individual or business selling food to learners must comply with necessary regulations. Schools and SGBs and vendors must make sure that they familiarize themselves with provisions that we have already set out as the department.
Bulelani Balabala joins me now to look at the impact this will have on the township economy and what other long-term solutions can be implemented around food sold at township spazas, schools and by informal traders. A very good afternoon to you, Bulelani. Thanks very much for your time. Just your thoughts on the back of what the Gauteng Education Department has just announced.
I think the announcements by the Department of Education, on the back of the experiences that we've had over a few weeks, and really condolences to all the parents that have lost their young kids. I could understand it from that perspective, but I think, it also then requires a layer of, clarity in terms of it can't just necessarily be a shutdown. So I think they're now unpacking or unraveling of the fact that, the SGBs will be, monitoring the local businesses much closer to ensure that they're selling the right type of food, will ensure that those businesses that are operating in and around the schools are held to account, but not necessarily just completely put completely out. Because I think where we are as a country at the moment, with the youth unemployment, having more businesses out of operation, further exacerbates the socioeconomic impact, of all the challenges that we are faced with at the current moment. But equally so, it is very important for us to protect our young kids, because food that is produced, whether be it in a township, whether be it Newzroom, whether be it Amakota, whatever the case is, need to meet the highest quality standards. But however, then it also then, this situation also then opens up another aspect, which then talks to the current regulation, which is already in place, the level of education, which is already in place, especially for those traders that are trading or vendors that are selling these types of food. Are they aware of the food standards that they need to maintain? And what that then does is that it opens up an opportunity for education, especially for local South African vendors that are really reliant on this income, so that it then makes them more savvier and gives them a competitive edge in order for them to be able to then supply their food, not just in the spaces that they're in, but across the board.
You're right. We've been asking the authorities to act as a matter of urgency. But one wonders, certainly from listening just to the bit we played, from the spokesperson of the Education Department, one wonders just how effective this is going to be if it's going to be left to the schools themselves, the SGBs and the vendors themselves to actually ensure that the right things are being done. I'm wondering whether you're not burdening these schools and whether they do in fact have the know-how and the wherewithal to actually do what they are being asked to do.
You know what? I think to ask any school to deviate from their current business and focus on this, would be a big challenge, because I don't really think that they've got the capacity. However, to a degree, this tragedy brings a great opportunity for the many young unemployed individuals for their program to be created, for them to be co-opted into being the ones who are local and inspecting these vendors. And I think that then becomes the opportunity itself, But however, it requires, government in and itself to create the enabling environment for this to then take place. Because if this is then not, if this is only treated as a knee-jerk reaction, we're going to have more issues and cases coming, in the months and years to come. And I think, this response at this particular time needs to just be that, a response and not a reaction that is wholly compounded or singularly that is reliant on SGPs in schools. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. And I think we are well aware of the fact that, even education in and itself and the inspectors in themselves might not have the capacity to go out and check every school, but that's where then the opportunity lies with government creating an enabling environment and the moment they do that, then they build trust and corporates are able to then come in. Similarly to what you would have with corporates supporting various municipalities with the points guards that are standing on every robot whenever there's traffic, sorting that out. This is a similar situation where we, create that opportunity for these young individuals, to then be brought in to then help in the mitigation of or rather driving food health and food safety and also food education within the townships across the country.
Does it not then also present an opportunity to borrow that word from you, for perhaps township traders, businesses to actually approach the government and say, we are in this together. On the one hand, you have opportunities that are opening up for local businesses, traders and the like. But on the other hand, these are our children. We have to care about their safety and their lives. But let's come up or let's look at something that will be effective, but that also takes into account the opportunities that you're saying are open to local traders and businesses. In other words, proactively approaching the government to say, don't just tick boxes because you want to be seen to be doing something, but let's do something that will, one, take care of the concerns we have around our children, but two, the opportunities that we believe are there. But and then thirdly, we're looking at a medium to long term thing that won't be just about crisis, intervening in the crisis that's prevailing at the moment.
No, definitely. I think, our view as well is that I think at the current moment, we're trying to also reach out to the education department from the moment they made the statement, because, in 2 weeks, we're hosting something called the Township Economy Summit. Now, part of that is we've got a panel that talks primarily to retail businesses, which are your spaza shops in the township. And we're reaching out to them to say, we have 2,400 businesses and 10,000 that will be watching online. Come on this platform and let's unpack what regulation means. Let's unpack what food and health and safety is. And I think that then is part of, us against from a business perspective, saying to government, we are here to help, but also not just to help, but we are here to create the platforms where you can plug in, because the protection, of kids is not a remote thing, which is why, traditionally in townships, as a young kid, if you were loitering around when it was school time in your uniform, you'd be reprimanded. And every adult was a parent, And I think being able to uphold those values and opening up various platforms in the township means that we are then continuously protecting, our own communities. And I think you are right. It is a big opportunity for us as the business community operating in the township, for us to play a role in protecting the space, and not just the pace, but the children, the men and the women that live and occupy these various communities. Because at the end of the day, they're not just customers, they are family and they are community to us.
And perhaps as a parting shot, just your thoughts around a proposal or suggestion or whatever we call it, that the ANC, which is the leading a partner in the government of national unity, made proposals yesterday. Its Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, saying the ANC is calling on the government to close all spaza shops and register them afresh to deal with this concern of food safety.
Yeah, so, I think that is an open-ended statement in my view, because, when you close and you reopen, the big question is, God is in the details. And the question then is, what is the management structure of that reopen? When you're re-registering them, you're re-registering them to do what exactly? So I really think that there is a great opportunity in the suggestion made, being made by the ANC in this particular regard. But however, the great power and the value in this is them working with the right sort of intermediaries. Now, these are organizational forums or individuals that are very active in various community spaces, whether it be Umlazi, Khayelitsha, Langa, Tutembisa. And when the moment you partner with them, it's going to be easy for you to then roll out the right type of monitoring. Why? Because these are custodians and these are individuals that don't just advocate, but they've got their hands that are firm on operations on the ground nationwide. And I think, the moment you do that, then you gain great value because you are able to actually then monitor. So I think then my proposal to them and any other organization is that, for instance, us as an organization, we've got presence in all major townships and 2/3 of the country's townships. That being able to tap into that, puts you in a great position for you to be able to paddle the information much easier and much quicker to the individuals around the country. But there are three main things for me. I think the number one thing for me is food health education. Number two, unpacking what the regulations are. And the third part is we then starting a program for bringing on board the individuals or the businesses that were non-compliant from a COA perspective, from a government perspective, advocating for that and bringing them on board, but not just necessarily closing them. So if the idea is to close them, to reopen, the idea is not to close them, but find a way of bringing them on board, but also educating them and then making them compliant. And then over and above that, then sealing it off by consistently managing the operation and the output of what they're supposed to be delivering on.
Thank you very much for your time there, Bulelani Balabala, who is from the Township Entrepreneurs Alliance.